All right. And again, those of you who just joined us, welcome. I'll just say one more time because we just had a couple more people hop on that the chat box is disabled this evening to simplify the process. So any questions you have can go right in that Q&A box. I'm Avril Williams. I'm the head of marketing for Backyard ADUs. Any of these events, the newsletters and emails that you get, our social media, a lot of that comes through me. And with us tonight, we also have Des Grega, Chris, aka Des Grega, who's I still can't figure that out, our home advisor in New Hampshire. So if you decide to build with us, you'll be working alongside him. I think that's all the things. Des, you want to take it away here?
Sure. My name is Chris Desgrega. I am actually a Deerfield, New Hampshire resident, and I've been with Backyard ADUs here for about 14 months. And my job's been to try to get stuff going here in New Hampshire, and we've been following along with a lot of the changes with the New Hampshire laws regarding ADUs. Tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about us, a little bit about ADUs and those questions. And some of you I may have already talked to at the show, or you may have seen our last webinar. And I am going to recap where the new law for ADUs in New Hampshire stands. And if you have any questions with that, feel free to reach out to me at any time. We're getting almost weekly updates on some of those changes. So tonight we're going to talk about ADU policies, the current state of ADUs in New Hampshire, and a little bit more about what that's going to look like, and a lot about what we do here at Backyard ADUs. Moving on. So a lot of you already know us a little bit, but we're going to give a quick recap. Who is Backyard ADU? ADU is based in Brunswick, Maine. Uh, we do a lot of homes in Maine, but we also do a lot of homes in Massachusetts, Cape Cod, Western Mass, New Hampshire. It was founded in 2019 to build ADUs and innovate in modular construction. Uh, we're building 45 ADUs in 2024, maybe 50 plus units this year. We also have multifamily units that are going in Portland and other areas. If anybody's interested in that, I will get you in touch with Chris Lee, who works on those bigger projects and helps town really work towards solving some of the housing crises that we have now. So, what is an ADU? Why are we talking about ADUs? What are the implications of permitting? How large can ADUs be? What does it mean to be subordinate? What are implications for fire and egress? Modular versus stick built versus HUD versus tiny home. These are the things we're going to cover a little bit tonight. And please hit Averill if you have questions, stop me. I'm going to kind of work through this and go through where we're at. Some of the stuff you guys may already know, but some of the stuff may be new, so feel free to reach out with any questions you have. So, an accessory dwelling unit. Typically, it's a small unit that's 1 to 2 bedrooms. Uh, it can be detached, can be connected to an existing house, can be part of an existing house in a basement or in a garage. Um, our units are typically 1 to 2 bedroom, all electric, high efficient homes, built to net zero ready standards. Uh, we really have been working on our process to get these built in under 10 months using modular construction and really working on the process to get through uh, design, pre-construction, and then construction. And we have really been bringing the times down and really streamlining the process, trying to make a better experience for all of the clients going through wanting to build ADUs. The reason we're talking about this and the reason we're really here in New Hampshire is there's a home shortage in New Hampshire. All of New England, we're all aware of it. Right now, New Hampshire has a current shortage of 23,000 homes, and we'll need to build 60,000 housing units by 2030. It's just an awful lot of homes. And we all know that the cost to build also has risen beyond what most people can afford. So being creative with ADUs will be a key to helping bring down the cost and get people into affordable housing. Um, the other thing that we've been looking at with some of the other towns, and some of you may be on with some of the towns that I'm with the chambers for, but there's a lack of housing, which has caused workforce shortages. And so workforce housing is really becoming a big thing that we're looking into in a lot of communities. And we're looking at ways to use ADUs to kind of help combat a lot of that. So, what is an ADU? An accessory dwelling unit is an additional alteration that is an additional subordinate dwelling unit on the same lot. That means that there's a primary house. So basically, an ADU is accessory to or subordinate to a primary structure. So that means that this unit, if it's an accessory dwelling unit, has a primary house, and this is going to be a second unit for separate living arrangements. Um, some of the words you've all heard of them. They've been called in-law apartments, granny flats, coach houses, um, all of those types of things they have been called in the past. So what can an ADU look like? This is going to come into when we talk about the New Hampshire law, is they can be detached, they can be attached, they can be on the interior, like in an attic space or a basement. They can be above a garage, or they can be a garage conversion. So all of those are things that can be accessory dwelling units. Here at Backyard ADUs, we really focus on detached units or units that are attached to a unit because we do modular construction. It's part of our mix. We're not remodelers, so we focus on the detached and attached units. So in this picture here, it kind of shows that we have the primary house. Here's another room off of the primary house. And then here's an ADU that we built that is attached to the back. So this is subordinate to the primary residence. This is the unit we did here. This is a detached unit where this is the primary house here. And this was also a garage that we had done, and it has finished space above the garage. But this unit is a detached unit, and it's still subordinate to the primary house. And this is an example of what the most of our units look like. This happens to be a square, what we call a square model, in the kind of a Cape Cod style, very popular, and gives us lots of options. Why we're talking about ADUs here in New Hampshire. In New Hampshire, the last time the law was modified was 2017. This law was to expand the supply of housing. Uh, it was encouraged to use existing housing stock and infrastructure, provide more affordable housing options. It did not have the impact they were hoping for because a lot of the municipalities found ways to put restrictions on the ADUs, which meant that there were too many hurdles to climb over to get the ADU built. So it didn't have a lot of teeth. Maine last year, 2024, passed their ADU law, which really helped Maine kick into high gear. Vermont passed theirs in 2020. Massachusetts just came into effect February 2nd of this year, and we have seen a lot of interest and a lot of clients coming in from Massachusetts in building ADUs with the law change down there. So what does the new law look like and where are we at? So last year we had House Bill 1291, which failed, made it through the House, but it failed in the Senate during the election season. And there were some things with it that they want to change. So the new House bill is 577, and 575 hasn't changed the items that the Senate did not like. It has just left the House. It went through committee, then it went for a vote. She's through the House and now is headed over to the Senate. The way the new law is written, they would like to have it effective July 1st of 2025. may be a little optimistic, but we'll see how fast it gets through the Senate. The big things about this and what we were just talking about in those other slides is that this would allow for detached units of up to 950 square foot by right, which means you can, if it will fit on your lot, the town cannot make you go through a special hearing or special permits to get the ADU built. By right, you would be allowed to build it if it fits within the setbacks and it fits on your lot. It can be allowed to be detached. It can be allowed to be detached. Um, and the by right process makes the permitting process not only simpler, but much faster. Going through the zoning reviews could add many months to the process. Um, the towns can exceed the size of the ADU. Many New Hampshire towns allow for ADUs up to 1,000 square feet. They could have larger, but they cannot restrict anything less than 950 square feet is what the state will allow you to build by right. Um, there are some situations where you will still have to go into special permitting when there are zoning districts of wetland zoning, historic districts, different things like that that are overlay districts that may have other items that may require you to do what we call an NOI or notice of intent, and you may have to go through some hearings and do that. But overall, if you're not in one of those overlay districts and an ADU will fit on your lot and we are able to get utilities to it and a sewer or septic connection that will work, you can go ahead and build that ADU. That's the big change with the law. There are a lot of other smaller points with the law about ownership and different things which are still getting settled out. They were trying to get it where the owner did not have to live on site. That is back in where the towns can decide if the owner must occupy one of the units. That is going to be a town option. That was one of the big concessions between the two laws.
Um, will the new law override the state law if it passes? My municipality only allows up to 750 and has to be attached.
Yes. So the new state law is going to supersede that. All towns will have to allow up to 950 square feet and will have to allow detached units. That is the big part about the law that's kind of making it go forward. The other big part that towns were doing is they were allowing you to do an ADU, but they required you to have, they could increase the size of the lot that you needed to build on. They can't put that restriction on it. So if there's a primary home already on that lot, even if it doesn't meet here in Deerfield, you have to have 3 acres to build on. But if there's an existing home that's only on,
3 acres.
yeah, they want to make it 5, and that's real common in New Hampshire. If there's an existing home with 1 acre, you can put an ADU on it, even though you don't meet that 3 acre requirement because there's an existing home. And as long as it fits within those setbacks and that we have a place to put that septic system, then you can go ahead and build that unit. Yeah, there's also another bill going in talking about lot sizes. That one is probably not going to go through from what I heard last. But if you have any questions about that, we can take that off of outside here. But that for to answer your questions is you now can build 950 square feet and you can put it anywhere on your lot.
To
Uh,
celebrate. That's
oh,
exciting.
great. Yeah, it's great news. And most of the towns know this is coming through, and most of them are already adjusting their rules because they know this is coming. Just the ones in the biggest ones we run into struggle with, there's Nashua, Concord, and Manchester in that corridor, haven't updated their rules yet. They're a little slower moving, but I imagine we'll see some movement there pretty quick as well. Any other questions?
Nope, I think that's it. And also, if anyone has a specific municipality they live in, you can always email Des he'll look into finding out your specific
I,
scenario.
I've already done zoning research in about the top 40 towns in New Hampshire, so I probably already have it, and they're on our website. But Phil reach out to me, and
Okay,
I'd
good.
be happy to dig through that with you, especially if you're not on that list. And then also, I've had contact with a lot of the planning commissions. There's planning commissions in New Hampshire, and I can talk about where the movement is going because a lot of people are doing great movement. Dover's just done a lot of wonderful things about getting their rules. A gentleman over there by the name of Ryan Pope has really been working on getting their rules switched around. Portsmouth has been doing great work there as well. And then even up in small towns like Ossipee have already adopted a lot of the rules that the state is going to go into to be more friendly to try to help get more housing.
Yeah, because the rules may say one thing, and I would assume it's beneficial if you're wanting to not, if you're something wanting to do something that the rules currently say are not okay, it'd be nice to know where the direction things are heading so you could might even if it meant to wait a little longer, it might be worth it to you. So sorry, you can keep on.
Yeah, no, it's huge group of people really making a lot of really positive information. And I've talked with a lot of our legislatures, and just everybody's been just getting a pouring of support for this. So it's just working out the fine details. Um, Permitting routes, right now, we're hoping everything will go by right, which is generally easier and faster. You just apply to the building department, make sure you meet current building code, make sure you meet the septic requirements, um, and it's pretty straightforward. Special permit is where we've been at in a lot of towns, where you have to have a public hearing, uncertain timing. They might only have these meetings once every other month, which means you could be, waiting for months just to get to a hearing. The neighbors can make comments. It just adds additional permitting time and cost. Often too, the regulations can be unclear, and it can kind of be up to the current board. So what approval you might get from one board on the next election cycle you may not get. So the state law is just going to kind of unify things and make it more consistent overall. I touched base a little bit on overlay district. These are the ones that are going to still be something that we have to look at, and we're going to have special permitting for. Shoreline is going to be the biggest one here in New Hampshire that we're going to have to really always look at is those wetline setbacks, depending on where you're at. Those are going to be a big issue. There are some areas in Portsmouth and some other ones that have historic overlays that may have some specific requirements. So, you kind of know if you're in one of those districts, and we can take a look at that by town by town. But if you have any questions, give me your address. I'll make a couple calls. I'll get you the information you need to have to see what the process is to get you through the permitting for an ADU. Some other quirky things that come up in New Hampshire. The owner, Chris Lee, was laughing at me when I told him that rock walls here in New Hampshire are a really big deal. And he laughed at me, and then I showed him the rules, and yeah, they are. We can't move them. So, this is something about when we get into doing our feasibility studies that we look at everything we have, and if we have rock walls, we know that we can't move them. We got to build on the other side of them, and just something we have to work around. And it's not just that. There'll be other things in town. Some towns have protected areas, protected trees, different things that we have to work around. But other than that, again, if the ADU fits inside of that stone wall, we have no problems with the new state law of getting that built in. Um, so again, New Hampshire, we are great. We're unique and have a couple little extra things to consider sometimes, but it's why we like being in the Granite State. So ADU size. So current typical definitions of what we have right now is a lot of areas like the person who asked are 750 square feet or 50% of the principal dwelling. This is something the New Hampshire law is not doing. They're allowing up to 950 square feet, and they're not putting in a percentage limit. So if you have a 1,200 square foot home, a lot of times you could only build a 600 square foot ADU. That currently is not in the current form of the regulation for the state of New Hampshire coming through. So that's great. If you have a 1,200 square foot home and you want to put in a 900 square foot ADU, you'll be able to do that. Some areas in Massachusetts, it was 30%. So if you wanted to have a 900 square foot unit, you would have to have a 2,700 square foot house. So it made a lot of issues. So this is going to make it a lot easier to get a unit that uh, has some size usability, especially if you need two bedrooms. We do a lot of units and we can get a really nice one bedroom unit around 600 square feet. But really to get a nice two bedroom unit, a little over 800 square feet is where a nice two bedroom unit starts. And, we get up to 900, 950 square feet. We really can get a very nice condominium size unit and do a really great job. So this new House Bill 577 in the 950 square feet is really going to help with some very nice units out in the New Hampshire market. Um,
I have a question for you.
Sure.
Seeing as density lots are small and wouldn't meet setbacks, are there towns or policies to make zero lot line setbacks?
I haven't seen that as of yet. There are areas in Dover and Portsmouth where that could be an issue where the lots are extremely small. But that's going to be a town by town, and I'll have to research that individually. Currently, there's nothing in the state law requiring going to zero lot line. And to be honest, in a lot of places in New Hampshire, we don't have too many small lots. We seem to all be on a little bit bigger lots here in New Hampshire. Um, I kind of covered this already. It's what it means to be subordinate. It basically means that the ADU is a part of a property that has a primary. The thing to really look at this in the new law, uh, it's going to have it where you don't have to share power from the primary unit. The ADU can have its own utilities so that if you are going to have a child or a mother or rent it out, that ADU can pay their own water, their own sewer, and their own electrical bill. Many towns in New Hampshire, you could not put the ADU on separate utilities. And that was a big point for a lot of people who wanted to have separate billing for the ADUs. So even though the ADU is subordinate to the new ADU law in the state of New Hampshire is going to allow the ADU to stand on its own for the utility portion of that.
Which can save a lot of money, I'd imagine too, having that as an option.
It can and it can't.
Depending on how old your other house is, or like, I don't know, like if you have
Uh,
to put in new pipes and all that.
Well, and the other thing is, I'm doing one in Massachusetts, and the question comes in, can we keep the ADU on our current meter because
Mhm.
they don't want to pay two delivery fees?
Right.
Because the delivery fees are very expensive. Now, and for those of you who are familiar with backyard ADUs, in our process, we do a feasibility study for $600, and these are the questions we answer. We go down and dig through all of the details and all the minutia about what is this ADU going to cost you? Where can we put it on the lot? How are the utilities going to work? What can we do with the utilities, or what do we have to do with the utilities? Kind of a ballpark of where it's going to cost. Um, and what we do is we work with this site plan, and this is a site plan for a house I'm actually doing in Barrington. And just to kind of as a pre-announcement, the owner and the town of Barrington want to have an open house. So Avra will be putting together an email here in about probably 8 or 10 weeks as this house gets set and built, that we will be doing an open house out there. And you'll be able to see this house is so perfect for New Hampshire because it had all of the New Hampshire problems. We have Winnebago-sized boulders that we had to move the unit around. We have a water line from an existing well that's going to look like a horseshoe to get around the rocks. Um, we have a septic system that had to be built between two big boulder rocks area. So the site plan took quite a bit to get everything put in. But this is not a 3 acre lot. This is just a little over an acre and a half, and it we got the ADU to fit. It's a nice 600 square foot unit for an adult son who has a great job out at the shipyard. And the parents are frankly tired of the basement smelling like sweat and beer, so they want their 24-year-old son to have his own place. And so he's going to have this great one bedroom unit out back, and they just think it's fantastic, and it's a beautiful lot.
And it's
But
sharing a well, is that what I'm seeing there?
yeah, we're sharing a well, and that was one of the things that the well has high enough flow, and one of the things we do in that feasibility study. Our process is to do the feasibility study first, and like I said, we really focus on getting the process done. And I'm always one trying to skip through the process, and everybody yells at me. So I always try to, I would keep in the back of my head that we got to do the process so we don't miss anything because we do a cost build. So you get to see all of the costs involved in this build. So we do that feasibility study, then we go on to that design phase where in the design phase, any of those questions that we had in the feasibility get locked down, estimated, and done. That's the first part of the design is that pre-design phase. The second part of that part is the design, which is fun. We all like doing that part. That's the part everybody enjoys. And then we do production review and we vet everything before we go to contract. Then we go out and we get into the build stage. But the whole process, 8 to 10 months, is very typical. Um, but we can't go a lot faster than that because we don't want to miss the details. Because as you can tell by these lots, sometimes we have a lot to work through, and we don't want to have a house showing up and then not be able to actually set it down. So, very, very good about working through the process, but also getting that information, working with the client about what they want and giving them the right information to make the decisions. Because there's going to be a lot of decisions that they have to make, and it may not be what they want, but it's what's available. This one she would wanted the ADU in a different spot, but with the setbacks and the rocks, it's kind of got to go where it's kind of got to go. So, there's always
Someone
some.
said the one consistent crop you can grow in New Hampshire is rocks, and I
Yeah,
love
but they're very nice rocks, so we like the rocks. Um, Anyway, again, we can go over that. And as we go forward and do more of these webinars for New Hampshire, we'll be talking more about how we design and the process and how we go through. Right now, our biggest questions we're getting is about the rule change because it's going to open up a lot of New Hampshire to be able to do this. And I am available Monday through Friday till 6 o'clock at night. Feel free to get my number off the website, give me an email, and I'd be happy to talk ADUs and go through and see what town it is and see where you're at, or just call me up and say, hey, where's that law sitting right now? I'm checking it almost daily. I'm checking the record over at the State House to see what changes are coming and where it's at. So feel free to reach out with that. These are just a couple pictures we have at the end of this. If there's not any questions, I want to kind of keep going through. But, these are the things we run into when we do that feasibility study. Here's that great rock we have and how we have to do a foundation around the rock. The good news is this foundation will never go anywhere being built on top of that rock. But this is a foundation that had to be a little bit taller than normal to work with this lot. And these are the things we figure out in that feasibility study to see, what additional items are going to cause some issues. And stuff like this raises cost a little bit. So sometimes when a project doesn't go through after the feasibility, it's because we run into something like this and the cost goes a little higher than the client would be comfortable with. But we can do a lot. Um, we've been talking a lot about the rocks here. I won't hit this again, but it is. I think one. I think 2 out of 3 sites we deal with rocks in New Hampshire. So it is what it is. The other thing we look at too is radon. We try to do all this planning from the beginning. And these are all issues that come up in our feasibility studies, is all of these issues that we have. We like to plan from it from the beginning. I like to say our feasibility sometimes is kind of the worst case scenario. We kind of put everything in there so you have that number, and then you kind of keep it in your head. But if you do it from the beginning, putting a radon system in from the start is pennies on the dollars versus trying to retro it in after the fact.
Someone says that at the home show, they're told that they can add ADUs to land that doesn't have a home on it. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's not an ADU at that point, it's a standalone home. So, absolutely. If you have a lot, you can build a standalone home on it, and we do that quite often. I'm working on one right now, and it's a little bit bigger than we normally do. It's going to be about an 1,100 square foot unit, and it's actually started off as a 2 bedroom, but it's a 2 bedroom and an office slash really small third bedroom. And still, with the modular construction and the feasibility, we don't change our process. We still do the same thing to do our vetting on that lot and get all the information before we go on to design and before we start spending real money. We do that feasibility study and get all the information gathered for the client so that we can go. But yeah, we can absolutely build ADUs on lots of outhouses, but at that point they are just called houses. Any other questions?
Nope, that's it.
All right. New Hampshire, couple, quick things. This was addressed a couple years ago, but New Hampshire is unique. We are not required to have fire sprinkler systems here in the state of New Hampshire. So the towns or the municipalities cannot require you to put a sprinkler system in the ADU. There are areas in Maine where that is an issue and they are required to do that. And I know they're trying to get some legislation passed, but that 15 or $20,000 can really hurt a budget for an ADU and a client getting put in. But in the great state of New Hampshire, they have made it that they cannot be forced to put sprinkler system in the ADUs. So that's great. And it's a huge cost we don't need. The units we build in modern construction is pretty fire resistant as it stands. So it's really not needed. But that's kind of where the fire codes stand in the state of New Hampshire. Well, when we're down to the questions here. Oh, I almost got that point done right. We got about 20 minutes left for questions. Does anybody have anything else they want to talk about? I know tonight was really heavy about the New Hampshire law. It's kind of just where we are at in New Hampshire. But please ask us some questions, even if it's about the process or ADUs in specific. Would love to answer any questions you may have.
Yeah, and actually, if you want to put a question in the question box, you can do that. If you feel comfortable coming on, we have enough time. We never do. If you want to raise your hand and feel comfortable coming on, and also the recording being up with your face on it, then we could pull you forward, in which case you can hit the raise hand button. And you have a small home advisor just ready to answer any question that you have. And it doesn't need to be about policy. It can be about anything that
And
has to do
anything
with home
about
building.
ADUs?
Yeah. Give people a second in case they need to type it out. I'm trying to. All right, here we go. So back to the law. It's been through the House, but isn't law yet, correct? What's the timeline and that the law might change?
Sure. They want to make it for July 1st. The law from last year, 1291, failed in the Senate. Jason Osborne is the majority leader in the Senate. From what I've been getting from the people who are there, is that the changes they have made were directed by the Senate. So the 577 law is going through without a lot of provisions. They were going to do two ADUs by right, with the second ADU having to be fair market housing HUD rental rate. And that was a provision that the Senate did not like. So that has been removed, and the items that the Senate was not happy with from the last ball have been changed. So we're expecting that this is going to go through pretty quickly. And the new governor is in support of it and is showing a lot of support from it. So we're thinking it's just going to work through the process and be signed in. Will the July 1st date hold? Not for certain on that. Government always never seems to work as fast as we want it to. And I'm not an expert on that by any means. But I do expect we'll see something this summer.
Great. What is the typical price range for an ADU once completed?
Well, it's hard to say, but because of what we do in that feasibility study is figure out what the site conditions are. We know what the cost of the building is. That's very easy to calculate off of the size and how big the kitchen is, how many bathrooms, and all of that. But typically, the actual house, the actual ADU, is about 40% of the build. The other 60% comes from the site work and the permitting and all of that type of work. And it can really vary depending on, do you need a septic? I just had one who had a great 40-foot sewer run. It should have been very inexpensive, except they had a clay pipe sewer that needed to get replaced. So that's going to add, 12 or $15,000 to replace the sewer to the primary house so we can connect the ADU. So that's why it's tricky to say. The ADUs we have, can they start around the 250 mark? Sure. The site work has to be very moderate of what we have to do with that. Typically, we're seeing our units a lot closer in the 300 to 325 range. Going in, our average size is probably, between that 700 and 800 square feet. We've done them as big as well, we've done them as big as 1,800 square feet and as small into the 500 square foot range. And so all of those kind of take factors. There's also an economic of scale. Sometimes it's the same cost to do a 500 square foot house. We still have to bring in a crane and we still have to do all of that, where a 900 square foot one with
Yeah,
more
it might
square
be a big
footage
difference. Yeah.
is still the same base cost to get the crane out there. So sometimes the smaller you go, you might see, everybody's asking, how's that square foot price? What is the square foot price? Well, it changes, especially at these small levels, because sometimes on a smaller unit, it's going to be a lot more per square foot. The price overall will be less, but that cost isn't being able to spread out a lot of the fixed cost involved. But typically I tell people 275 to 325, we can do a nice ADU. If you're looking to do max size 950 square feet, it could really drift up to the high 300s and low 400s if you're expecting top end finishes in higher end
You also
portions.
can reach out to Des via email, and we do have a pricing guide to give you a general idea. And I also think it's a good point that you made, Des, about there that there's the cost of the house, but then there's the things that are very specific to your property. And that in shopping for builders, regardless of who you go with, is kind of one of those questions to ask when you're getting prices from other companies too, is this all in price or is this just the house price? Because sometimes things can look great on paper until you get deep into things. We have a lot of more questions coming in. Again, if you are wanting more specific, or maybe on our site, you see a house that you like on our social media and you're like really into it and curious what that house cost in the location that it was built at. Again, it can vary. Just reach out and we can give you a little better idea based on what you're looking for. And that feasibility study gets really close, doesn't it? Like
Within 5 or 10%. What the feasibility doesn't do, it doesn't tell us what countertop you're picking out. It doesn't tell you, the cabinetry or the flooring you're choosing. So, it gives us a base range of where we can go, and it gives us our big ticket items, and it shows you where your problems are going to be. And those are really what we're trying to discover to get. Like I always tell my customers, at the end of every meeting, I always talk about where the budget's at. Because we're a fixed company, I want to know, if your target is $350,000, my job is to make sure you're staying there. And I can help you make those decisions saying, that's great. I love the fact that you put 30 cabinets in your kitchen, but now we're $25,000 over your price. So do we need to adjust that? And that's my job to kind of try to keep the eye on that overall budget and let you know when your decisions are going on. And a lot of things are, people they get down to it and they go, I really want that screened in the porch and I want it done at the same time as the ADU. And that's a $30,000 item. And it throws us over budget. So
does these do these prices that you're mentioning, do they include all the site work, foundation, utilities, etc.?
yeah, our pricing when we do the feasibility and when we do our pricing, it's all in. It includes everything from the uh feasibility to the design work all the way through. But what it doesn't does the only thing we don't include in our units are appliances. And then people will pick out special light fixtures or things like that. But other than that, everything else is included. We install all of the appliances, but there's a warranties. It's better to buy your appliances direct and get the warranties direct. But other than that, everything's included. So when you get a price from us, that's including the site work, it's including the septic work, it's including the foundation, setting the home, finishing the home, and we finish all of our homes with a rough grade and seed. We don't do landscaping, but we get it all prepped for it so that you can do whatever you want. We will put in, asphalt driveways and pathways and anything you want, but they'll all be part of the price when we do design. But when we give out those prices, those are all in prices. So there's nothing.
And does backyard ADUs themselves do all that work, or do we sub things out?
We do a lot of the work, but we sub out electric, we sub out plumbing, surveys are subbed out. We'll have septic designers that sub out, and then our site work guys, no one likes to haul an excavator 120 miles, so we hire local site work guys who have equipment local to do that. But we do enough of these where the subs that come on site, we've worked with quite a bit. Once we set the house, when it comes to siding and finishing the unit, hanging cabinets, doing the flooring and anything like that, that's all our guys. Our guys come on site and do that work. We have a crew. They travel pretty far to come in and do these, but we take care of all of that. And the set crews, the people who actually put it on the foundation, those are actually our crews. We don't own the cranes. We use crane companies again because cranes don't like to drive very far. It's a big piece of equipment that bounces down the highway, so we like to hire them as close to the site as possible to save money. But other than that, a lot of the work is done by in-house, and then all of the site supervision is there. And of course, us, the small home advisors, are actively involved throughout the build, making sure everything's going the way the client wants.
And we should mention with all that, because I'm seeing a few questions that relate to it, that we are a modular company. And can you talk about like what that is? Because I know we haven't really mentioned that.
So, yeah, we are a modular company, and we should really clarify that can also be used as prefab. Our homes are built in a factory, and then they are brought out on a truck and set in. But they still meet standard stick framing style construction. They're 2 by 6 walls. We do an R30 wall with an R72 ceiling, and our homes are net zero ready. If you put up 7 kW of solar panels on them, you won't have a utility bill. They come prepped with conduit for the solar. They're all electric so that they could go that way. You don't have to do it from the beginning. You can always retro that in. But all of our units are high
All
standard of how we're built. And we actually have our own specs we use to build these homes. So we have multiple factories we use, but they're building our specs. And we're very, very strict about getting our specs built. Because in New England, we need homes that are extremely energy tight.
um, can your company build both a garage and put an ADU on top of it?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a couple different ways we can do that. Sometimes we might stick frame the garage, so the ADU on top. We might bring it out in panels. Sometimes we might bring it out in boxes, depending on the design. But yeah, we can absolutely do that. Um, Garages nowadays are not the garages of old. They are a little bit more costly. I remember back when I started my building career, you could do a garage all day long for 12 grand. Those days are long gone. With the cost of concrete,
12 grand.
yeah,
Wow.
all day long. We used to put them up. We put up 10 of them in a month, and yeah, you make about $1,000 on them. But I'm also been in building for 30 years, so um, but with the cost of concrete, even garage doors are almost $5,000 now. So with all of those costs, garages start, if you almost about $30,000 a bay, plus or minus, depending on how it's finished. So that garage can add a big component to it. But putting an ADU on top, absolutely possible.
Um, what I'm assuming this is like a maybe a contractor question, but what do you see being built most? Stick built on site or modular, etc.?
For ADUs, we're all doing modular. Stick built has a lot of issues, where when you're getting those crews and the design build, they're usually sticking to much larger projects. At least what I'm seeing in New Hampshire. But a lot of even the larger homes are going modular. It's a huge amount of labor savings. You're building in a covered environment where you can control conditions. These factories are beautiful. Fully heated concrete floors. The way they do the wiring and plumbing and the way they have everybody right there, it's very streamlined. They spend a day at each station and are getting wired through very neatly, very cleanly. And so, with that labor savings and having labor shortages out in the field, modular is really taking a big jump.
And even
And
the timeline, like paying over the course of how many
well, yeah,
more months
and
too.
the big thing about when we do modular, although our process might take 8 to 10 months, we're not on your site for 8 to 10 months. By the time we come out and dig a foundation to the time we hand you the keys is only 8 to 10 weeks. So and so we're only on site for a little over 2 months doing the building. So you only hear the hammers and the equipment for 2 months. We're stick built, you're 9 months to a year on site that you're hearing people come out, and they have to take breaks when there's bad weather and wood's getting wet and then sub issues and all that. We never have to worry about a sub not showing up in a factory because everybody's in house and they kind of work right through the process. So it is a great process. It's a good product. And a caveat is I've been in panelized construction since I learned how to frame. And I shouldn't say it, but back in 1987 when I started framing. And
Yeah,
back
you
in
can do that.
and we were doing panelized houses back then, and it was great because we would build 4 to 6 houses a night and load them onto semis, and then they go out to the field and take them 3 days to erect the panels. But it really kept down, and this was in Wisconsin, so it really kept uh, the frame time down when you lost 3 or 4 months in the winter where you couldn't build. So lots of great stuff about that, and any questions about modular, I'm happy to talk about it. But once these go down, you can't tell the difference whether they're stick built or modular. Um, they're all 2x6 construction and all standard wood framing.
Yeah. I also found it interesting in visiting the factory because, I mean, the precision when you are someone that's trained just on one specific job, how like great you get at that job as opposed to someone running around trying to do all the things, which it's just so efficient and streamlined, like you said. But that
Yeah,
was
the factory we use in Maine has computerized cutting, and the
Mhm.
biggest piece of waste they have is about
Oh
12.
yeah, and the waste savings too, which
Well,
ultimately cuts cost on your end as well.
and if there's a 2 foot piece of lumber left over, the computer prints on it and it gets set aside and it's reused when they need it. And
Mhm.
then all of those little blocks that are left over, they save them and they put them in a efficient wood boiler that heats their floor in the winter. So it's the largest heated concrete slab in the state of Maine that they have heating that floor. And it's all heated with little 2x4 scraps about this big.
Huh.
And it's because of that computerized cutting. So there's extremely little waste.
Wow. Another question, is solar cheaper than getting the electric from the pole?
Yeah, the problem with the solar right now, the best options, in my opinion, are still to be grid tied because as you're producing, you're actually selling back, so you're still connected to that pole. Um, you can now, there are a lot of options that are becoming viable that do a battery backup system to carry you through when there's no sun. But those are pretty expensive and they're becoming standardized. I don't know if they're there yet. You could definitely do that. But I think your upfront cost would be drastically higher to do on-site storage for your electric. I think we're getting close. I don't know if we're quite there yet, but the thing about solar is I've been watching it for 30 years and it is steamrolling in the last couple of years. For the longest time, 100-watt panels, 150-watt panels are all we could really do. Now all of a sudden we're up to 500-watt panels in the amount we're producing. It's just, it's really going fast. And we're finally starting to see plug and play systems where all of the components will be standardized and be able to link, just like regular electric systems are. So I think we're turning that corner. I don't know if we're there yet.
Yep. That's it. We just checked the last little box.
Again,
Want to put your information back up there, the any questions page, just so it can sit there for a second while we, oh, I think you went by it at the very end there.
okay.
Um, oh, it's at the beginning?
So at the beginning, or am I already
Oh,
at the
the
end?
end, all the way at the end. It says any questions at the very end.
Okay, let me get down there.
So everyone can just get a
I'm
quick
really good at building.
takeaway.
I'm really poor at computers. So, if you want me to fix your
There
computer,
we go.
we're out of luck.
Right. Just give people a chance to write that down. And we thank everyone for coming. If you are not on our email list, I believe you will be added for attending this event. So then when other events come up, and also don't feel that it needs to be a New Hampshire specific event. We also do lots of them on different topics that pertain to everyone in all of our regions. And someone put in a comment that they had no idea we had a YouTube channel. So definitely just go to YouTube, put Backyard ADUs in, and all of our past events are there. And we even have home tours that you can watch. Check out some of the examples and the ones that say case studies and home tours. We talk about a lot of the pricing in those too, and those. And follow us on social media. And I think that's it. I think that's a wrap.
Reach out to me with any questions you have
Yeah.
here in New Hampshire, and even if it's something you're just curious about. A big part about what I do is helping educate and get the information out there. So we love talking about it. Even if you're not sure if you even have an ADU in the works, just call. We'll be happy to tell you about what it is and where things are at, and help you along your journey with building a small ADU.
We also like hearing about things going on in different cities and towns around. Like if you hear of a city meeting or something going on, send all that stuff our way too. And if you have any other questions that if you are on here and not specific to New Hampshire and just have a general inquiry, you can email info@backyardadus. And that's it. We're getting lots of thank you messages. Thank all of you. Thanks, Des. It'll be up
Thank
in a
you.
week, 1 week, and you can watch it later.
All
Thanks.
right, everybody have a great evening.
Have a good night. Bye-bye.